man. It's good. We got just hammered with snow, so
Yeah,
thanks
we're
for your
still
patience
snowing right
there.
now. Where are
Yeah.
you at again?
So I am in Kelowna, British Columbia. Have you ever been to Canada?
Nope.
So it's like the southern interior portion of British Columbia, the much warmer part of the province. I lived
I
up on
just
the
know that
coast.
British. I just know that British Columbia is where we need to annex as part of the U.S.
Yeah, yeah. Good luck with that.
I know, right? It's like the best part of Canada.
Yes, that's true. Well, it all depends how you're looking at it. But yeah, anyway, so I'm in the southern part where it's warm. I lived up north on the coast there for many years. So, how about yourself? Where
Doing
do
really
you live
well.
again?
I'm in Utah.
Utah, right? Oh, nice. And it's snowing down there, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
Finally,
always,
usually by the end of the year, we've gotten 3 to 5 good snows, if not more. Last year was just like snow after snow after snow. This year we didn't get any snow until after the new year. I think we had one little mini snowstorm in like November
yeah,
and it all melted within a couple hours. And then we didn't get any snow until it was like the first week of January. And now it's kind of been nonstop.
yeah. We didn't get any snow. We're more of a desert climate, so we don't get a lot of snow. But man, we got hammered with it, just hammered.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, man, why don't you, for my listeners, why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and kind of what you got going on?
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's always fun to be on the other end of the microphone, where I get asked the questions rather than asking the questions and
Yeah, it is, man. It's
and
funny,
leading.
not to cut you off there before you get going, but I get nervous when I'm on other people's podcasts. It's funny. Like I can talk to whoever as long as I'm the host, but as soon as the tables turn, man, I kind of get kind of nervous. I don't know. It's just like for some reason I feel like everyone's looking at me, but it's a
Well, they
double
kind of
screen. I
are.
don't
Everyone on
yeah.
the internet is.
Yeah, yeah.
No, yeah, I can't remember who I was talking with the other day. There's a family member, and of course it used to be the running joke like, "Oh, you've got a podcast, you've got this and that." And now, now that we've been to enough places that people recognize me, they'll come up and talk to me. Now my kids think I'm cool. Or
Yeah,
like when
yeah.
we go into like the bow shop and like my podcast is playing up on the screen, they're like, "Whoa, Dad's cool." I'm
Yeah,
like,
you're famous. Yeah, for
I
sure,
wasn't
man.
kidding about doing the podcast, but I don't think I'm not famous. I don't want to be famous, but
Yeah.
people, kids think I'm cool. That's what matters.
Yeah, man,
Um,
for sure.
but no, so I'm Johnathan McCormick, born and raised in North Carolina, transplant out to Utah after serving an LDS mission. For those of you that don't know what LDS is, I'm Mormon would be the short term for that, or Latter-day Saint, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That is not why I moved to Utah. And no, I do not have multiple wives. I can barely handle one. So no, thank you.
I,
We'll
I
get
I don't
that.
know how those guys do that, man. That's something else. Like I got
Well,
one wife and that's good for me.
I've got a theory on that. I think they're very, I hate that it sounds harsh, but like very subservient women that are okay with
Mm.
that kind of lifestyle. And I don't want a woman like that either. I want someone that'll bite me in the neck if I do something wrong,
Yeah,
like kind
for
of
sure.
correct me or whatever. So, anyway, got those jokes out of the way. Uh, born and raised North Carolina, came out to Utah, went to Mexico for 2 years on my mission. I'm fluent in Spanish. That kind of blows people away too. Um,
Yeah.
because I'm a redhead, blue eyes, pasty white skin, and I can speak Spanish. But and I just decided one day I was working in an office setting, and I never worked a Sunday because that was my family day. It always has been growing up, and so I would work every other Saturday, and then the days that I work or the weeks I work Saturdays, I would have a random day off during the week, usually a Tuesday or a Wednesday when we weren't too busy. And we'd come in after our days off and people would be like, "Oh yeah, I caught up on my show or I went to and went and ran some errands that need to be done. Got the oil changed in my car." And they're like, "Oh, what'd you do, Jonathan?" And I'm like, "Well, I took my kids on this hike up Donut Falls or up this way or that way." And they're like, "Aren't your kids toddlers?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, the older kids are in school. I'll take the younger kids and we'll
Mhm.
go for a hike." And they're like, "Why? How do you do that?" I'm like, "You guys have been in Utah a lot longer than me. Like we're blessed to be able, you drive 10 minutes and there's like 15 different trailheads that you can hit.
For sure.
And usually the first mile is kid friendly. And after that, get over yourself and carry your kids, like so they
Yeah.
can enjoy being outside. So I realized that people weren't taking advantage of that and they were getting caught up in kind of that rat race of like clock in, clock out, go home, be miserable, fight your kids doing homework and uh, maybe drink a beer or two before you go to bed and then wake up and do it all over again. And so I just started an Instagram based on that, just kind of sharing some adventures I do with the kids. Um, every once in a while, I would check my older kids out, you know, when I feel like maybe they needed some more dad time. I'd check them out of school and we'd go for a little hike, you know, if it was a nice day. And then I just said, you know, I don't want to be full-time YouTube because that's a lot of work. I have a lot of respect for people that do video editing and all of that stuff. As I carried a camera around for one hunt and I did not like it.
Yeah, it's
And
tough, man.
so, you know, I just decided, well, what's the next avenue to get good conversations, learn from people, have a good audience, reach people internationally, and I just started a podcast, and
Yeah.
I sucked. I don't recommend going to my first 10 podcasts because they're cringy, but
Yeah.
I leave them up there so you can see the growth from day one to now that I'm over 300 episodes deep.
Wow.
It's been fun.
Yeah, dude. And when did you start the podcast?
So I always get this mixed up. I want to say it's 2021. I should know this date better, but it's like June or July of 2021.
Yeah, because I mean, you've been doing it longer, not as long as I have, but you have more
Mhm.
episodes out, so you've been hitting it pretty hard, dude. I
So at
got to
one
commend you on
point,
that.
yeah, at one point I was doing 3 episodes a week. I realized that was too
Wow.
much.
And for people
Um,
though, don't like people who listen to podcasts, there's still a lot of work. Like it's not as much as like video editing and all that stuff, but it's still a lot of work. You still have to, once you get better at your editing, it becomes quicker, and then you get like, an intro set up, and it does become easier, but you still have to get it out there, right? And
oh yeah.
it takes time, and it's, lining up guests takes a lot of work, and yeah, so 3 episodes a week is impressive.
Yeah, so I was doing like a mindset episode that was like
Cool.
10 to 15 minutes. And then I was doing, so that was like a Tuesday, and then like the Thursday I was doing gear stuff because I'm a gear junkie.
Hmm.
And then Saturdays are my longer form where I'd have the guest on. And so I was kind of hitting it like that. Realized I was a little too much, so then I condensed it down to tinkering Tuesdays. Sometimes it's mindset, sometimes it's gear, depending on what I want to share. And then Saturdays are always the guests, so it's an hour to an hour and a half, depending on the episode. Um, and yeah, it's like right now I'm kind of in that phase where I've almost booked up too many episodes. Like I think I'm almost 2 months out. Like I could not record for the
Wow.
next 2 months and still have um and so that's a little too much because then you start becoming not relevant. You're not talking about things that are relevant. So it's a fine
Hmm.
balance, you know,
Yeah, for sure, man.
of trying to keep things relevant and also, you know, being okay when people have to reschedule. Like that's another thing for me too. I'm like, I don't want my conversation with you to be a stress. Like
Yeah.
if you have a family emergency or you have work or something comes up, like, cool, we'll just reschedule. Like it's not gonna screw up my timeline. I'm all right with that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing for sure is it is really hard. People have lives and family members and all that stuff, and kids activities. Like my kids, man, we're busy almost, not 7 days a week, 6 days a week. We're busy with their
Mhm.
stuff. So yeah, you really have to find time to where it's not going to affect what your
Yeah.
family's doing and affect there, because it's at the end of the day, this is for I mean, it's our gig, it's not theirs. It
Yeah.
shouldn't take away from any time from them.
Exactly. And I try and get my kids involved with it too. Like they see me on my phone or on the computer and they get home from school at like 3:45.
Yeah.
So I still have like at least until 5 that I usually work, depending on if they have activities to get to and whatnot. So they'll see me on my phone and on the computer and I'll bring them into the office and say, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm not playing a video game. I'm not
Mhm.
like dinking around. This is work. Like my phone
Yeah.
is work, my computer is work." And they also know when I put my phone down, like that's down and it's
Yeah.
their time, you
Yeah,
know.
for
So
sure.
we'll listen to an audiobook or something like that. But
Love
yeah, like I
audiobooks.
mean, going back to guests, like there's some guests that I've been trying to get on the podcast and like we'll have a date scheduled and something will come up on their end or my end. It's been over a year. There's two guests that I can think of that I've been back and forth with, and we text all the time. We're good friends, so I know they're not like just flat out ignoring me, but it's like it's hard to get some schedules together, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it is. And people are busy and people get like, they get a lot of podcasts. Like some people get a lot of podcast invites too. And so, I mean, you message them and they've seen your message and it's just, they're not getting back to you. You gotta
Yeah,
just kind of, move on to the next. It is what it is.
exactly.
Um, yeah, that's cool, man. We started started doing so no electronics even for mom and dad after 6 o'clock because it was getting out
That's
of
awesome.
control. So it's like phone calls only for work. So I told all the guys that work for me, all my friends, family members, if you want to reach us, you have to phone because like the days of like a landline, those are over. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you have to phone the house. It's yeah, but it's been good. It's yeah, you definitely have to you gotta keep them involved, and that's the beauty about the outdoors is like my kids heavily involved in the outdoors. Both my kids, both my oldest, he's been hunting now for 2 years. My youngest just got her license or finished her course, so she's going to be full bore next year. My 7-year-old, he doesn't understand why he can't go. He's trying to write a letter to the ministry to get him to change the rules on that. So we'll see how that goes. So when did you get into hunting?
So I'm one of those adult onset hunters, and we've got a funny story with that. I had a guy, and it's not many people that there's hate about that, but this guy was pretty crusty about. Can't remember what there was some post that I put up about adult onset hunters, and he sent me this long scathing message. It was funny because he was speaking to me as though I've been hunting my whole life, so he didn't realize that I was one of those. And he was like, "Yeah, these guys are so stupid. They're just in it for this, that, blah, 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 blah." And I just listened to him, message him back and forth, and then after he'd put his foot in his mouth far enough, I was like, "Hey, I'm one of those guys, and I appreciate your support, and this is why I do it, and
Yeah,
so." I'm nowhere near an expert. I actually just killed my first bull, this guy right here, this past
nice.
year. So it's been 3 years bow hunting, and before that, it was 3 years of rifle. And so I did mule deer a couple times, and I didn't hit anything huge, nothing that people would consider, Boone and Crockett trophy or anything. But for me, I was like, I was successful the 2 years that I actually had a tag in my pocket with a rifle, and it seemed like it wasn't too difficult. A little bit of a hike, buy-in
Hmm.
kind of deal, and then
Hmm.
packing it out. But like, I was like, man, I want a little bit more than that.
Hmm.
And uh, and so that's when I got into archery. My buddy had been kind of bugging me up until about 2019, and I mean, now I'm the one that him and his brothers and everyone else comes to and is like, hey, what's this? And what do you think about this bow? And what do you think about this and that? And so it's fun to see that transition. But going back even further, I do have a lifetime hunting and fishing license that my great grandfather had the foresight to buy for me in North Carolina when I was born. And he come to find out, I wish he had lived long enough for me to get into the outdoors with him. He was a killer. Like he
Hmm.
was awesome with everything from trapping to whitetails with a rifle. They never really got into archery. They were definitely more of the let's be efficient. They actually used everything. They ate the meat. They were farmers, so they were more concerned about the efficiency of making sure they got one rather than taking 2 months to chase a whitetail with a bow. And um, and so anyway, I grew up using the fishing portion of that license every single year. We'd always go bass fishing. That's always one of my favorite things to do. Sometimes coastal fishing. And the one time I went hunting in North Carolina, uh, it was it was interesting because I got up. It was later. I think I was like 16 or 17. My mom was dating someone because her and my dad had divorced, and this guy was like, "Hey, your son's into the outdoors. He's an Eagle Scout. Do you mind if I take him hunting?" She was like, "Yeah, sure." So I went out and I sat in this elevated box blind. And for me, it was like what stood out to me was there was three basically shooting lanes. There was corn at the end of this one. There's a salt lick down here, and then there was a feeder on the other one. And I was like, and they were like maybe 100-yard shot at the most. It was probably 80 yards and in. And I just kind of sat there. I'm like, I mean, if this is hunting, like I'm not really into it.
Hmm.
It's not fun to sit here and hope something comes in And even then I'm like, if I want to go shoot, like I can go shoot targets elsewhere,
Hmm.
like with shooting lanes, you know.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of brush it off until after my mission. Then I got married, and I was like 2 years into our marriage. I went to go help a neighbor with moving some stuff, and I went in his garage, and I was like, "Whoa!" I'm like, there's a lot of Euro mounts up here. At the time, I didn't know that was a term even. I was like,
Hmm.
"There's a lot of skulls and cool antlers," and so we started talking through them, and he was like, "Hey," or I said, "Hey, would you mind?" I said, "I don't know if I'm even saying the right thing here, but can I tag along with you?" He was like, "Sure." I said, "What do I need?" He said, "Pair of boots, some warm clothes. Here's a day. Meet me at this trailhead." I said, "Okay, cool." Met him, went up and learned how to glass, how to spot, deer and elk, and I was hooked after that. And
Yeah.
when did all my own homework, took the license for out here in Utah, took the test, got the license, and then started applying for points and learning the system a little bit, and still learning the system because that's a constant struggle, figuring out the new rules and regulations and all that. But that's kind of where it all started,
Nice.
and then just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, that's sweet, man. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it doesn't really matter when you get into it. I mean, whatever you enjoy doing, if you're not hunting, as long as you're doing something you enjoy, and as long as you're physically active, I think, all the power to you. And I'll support anybody that wants to do anything. If they're passionate about it, then, all the power to them. But yeah, that's awesome, man. So when you got into archery, what was that like? Explain that a little bit. Like, I got into archery. It was kind of a long process because my cousin, my mentor, my hunting mentor, well, like I say, he was the guy that really took me under his wing. Now, I started hunting when I was really young with my dad, obviously, right? Growing up in northern British Columbia, and BC's well known for all the animals they have. So, but I moved down to the sunnier part, and then I got into like backpack hunting, and that's when I really fell in love with it. Chasing elk, chasing mule deer, and then I slowly got into archery. But that process for me was really like, in BC, there's no incentive to really archery hunt. The archery season's only 9 days. So it's like, I mean, you can still hunt with a bow all year
Yeah.
round. Now, for the last while, I only hunt with a bow. I don't use the rifle anymore. But like that process getting into archery, man, it was a grind. Like it was just really frustrating. Luckily for me, I had a great mentor, and he was the BC champion. So he helped me, you know, just bypass, shortcut a lot of these mistakes that everybody made. And I'm always interested to hear people's path to it. Like now you look at you now and like you're doing tournaments, right? You're a great shot and all that stuff. But like when you started, archery's not easy. And a lot of people pick up a bow, they go to a pro shop, they get their draw length, everything's measured up, and then they go home and shoot some arrows. And then they start realizing how hard it is and they put it away, they never pick it up again.
Hmm.
So I'm interested in just like, I'll always love hearing people how they got like how they progressed into it and how they stuck with it.
That's a good question. It's a fun story too. So that same guy that took me out hunting,
Uh-huh.
he's become basically a brother to me. He's also our CPA. He owns a CPA firm. Really smart with that. So if you're looking for a CPA, definitely look into Brent. He will help you figure out how to spend more time in the outdoors if it's possible in
Oh,
your situation. So
beauty.
he loves to merge those two. But anyway, he kept bugging me. He was like, my sibling, he was like, you're into fitness, you're okay with failure, like not being okay with failure, but like learning from it,
Hmm.
and you're not going to throw a fit or throw your bow off the mountain if you miss a shot. You're very dedicated, so you kind of check all the boxes for someone who would be into bow hunting. So at the time, I didn't have the funds for it, and just told him, I explained that to him. I was like, the rifle works great. I'd love to get into it. I just don't have the funds for it. Well, I think it was about a year and a half of that, and um, and I get a check in the mail from my grandparents for my birthday, and I was like, did she like miss, like they're in their right mind, so I'm like, they didn't go crazy and accidentally do
Hmm.
something, but like, what happened? I called her, and she put my grandpa on the line. And I'll never forget because he had just recently found out he had a stage 4 cancer, that had come back from a prostate issue that he had, which supposedly had his prostate removed, but I guess they left just enough of it for it to come back with a vengeance. And so um, I just remember getting on with him, and I was like, Papa, what is this for? And he was like, well, remember that conversation we had about um, getting into archery, and you told us this is about what it would cost to set up a bow. Uh, he said, before I die, I want to see you spend the, some of the inheritance that you will be receiving. I want to see you use it. I don't want to
Hmm.
die and then give you the money. And I
Cool.
was like, that, I mean, it still sends chills and gives me goosebumps because I'm like, wow, that's all right. And this man has been through Korea, Vietnam, multiple Purple Hearts. He's seen some stuff. And so for
Warrior.
him to have, whenever he speaks, whenever he's, actually talking, I listen because he's got a lot of wisdom. And so I said, okay, I won't let you down. And went and, shot all the bows, went up to the bow shop, and I kind of laughed because my buddy Mark, who works up there, and Jeremiah, who's the owner of Wild Arrow, um, I laugh because I'm like, you guys sold me a bow back in 2019 and can't get rid of me now. But yeah, I went through and I asked all the questions. What about the longer length versus the shorter length? And what's the most poundage I can get up to? And I could barely pull back 70, at the time. Like I walk in and of course, they hand me the 7. They're like, we don't have an 80-pound bow, but here you go. And I could barely pull it back. And they're like, well, they're like, that's just you, you got to figure out those muscles and using that technique a little bit better. So I went through all them, and then I ended up picking a Hoyt, the Axius 29 and a half.
Nice.
Went with some Victory arrows, Victory Rip, TKOs, just kind of a good solid 450 grain arrow, um, flying out of the bow. So we ordered the bow because I wanted it in Kuyu Verde 2.0 riser with black limbs. And I think I can't remember what strings it was, like gray strings or something, but they're like, it's going to be a couple weeks because it's custom order. I said, that's fine, but I want a bow the way that I want the bow.
Hmm.
So um, they were very kind and let me borrow one of their bows while I was waiting for mine to come in. And we ordered mine from the 70 to 80 pounds because I'm a 28 and a half inch draw length. So I'm like right down the middle. And I wanted the ability to turn it up to
Hmm.
get the higher poundage if I could. And so they sent me home with a bow that was 70 pounds to just get some reps in. And every single day, I did 20 reps every single day for the 2 weeks that it took for that bow to come in. And man, my shoulder was sore. But like I took videos and I went into them. They watched my technique. I took videos and sent it over to there's two guys that I trusted online that I was getting information from, and I could tell that they were not trying to sell you stuff. They were genuinely trying to help people get better at archery. So I'd send them, they'd review it, they'd tell me this or that I should tweak. And anyway, my bow comes in, we turn it up to 75 pounds. And I did another 2 weeks of the same thing, 20 reps a day. And I'm telling you, by now my shoulder is like, it's numb to it at this point.
Hmm.
But when I say that, I recommend people use the right technique, of course. Like don't you know, I was doing everything from sitting. I would do 5 reps sitting, 5 reps kneeling, and then 10 reps standing. And I would video myself and make sure I'm not, doing this whole thing like leaning this way and like yanking it back,
Hmm.
like it's solid core, pulling back with the proper technique and not being overbowed and learning that proper technique, and then teaching your body that same thing. And eventually got it turned up to full. I think that one ended up pulling like 82, 83 pounds. And it's a snappy bow. I pull it back every once in a while now. I'm like, oh man, it's only been a couple years and this bow is rough compared to the new cams that have come
Oh
out, the
man.
last 3 years.
It's
Um,
it's impressive the technology, like how much easier it is. Like
yeah.
it blows your mind. Like the last 80-pound bow I shot was the Hoyt RX5.
Hmm.
And like I remember before that, I just shot. I mean, I had a lot of Hoyts, but like I think of my cousin. I don't have any of my old bows, but my cousin has his bow, and like his is 70 pounds. You pull that thing back, and you're like, oh my god, like
Hmm.
it's just violent. Yeah, small, tiny little
Yeah.
cams. Yeah, it's not forgiving like these new ones for sure, man. You could pull an 80-pound bow back now, and it's like it's smooth,
Oh
especially
yeah.
if you
It's
get
like
like
butter.
Yeah, if you get some good cam, like those EC2 cams that
Mm.
PSE has now, man, like they're just, yeah, they're beautiful.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. So, I was going through that, finally got all figured out. And then afterwards, I went through the process of learning how to dial in your sight and all of that. But that was kind of where I started. And it was again that, there's a key to all of this stuff is, from the moment I got into hunting all the way through like archery, I wasn't asking people to do it for me. I was asking good, solid questions.
Hmm.
I was asking a lot of them. So, I go back every once in a while and I ask people, did I bug you with these questions? And they're like, no, not at all. You actually had good, solid questions.
Yeah.
So, do your own homework and do the work for yourself and then ask good questions. And all of that combined continued with, the consistency of the reps. That was a big deal. And my first kill ended up being because I wasn't comfortable with that year. I could have picked up a bull tag because they're over the counter here in Utah. And I just told myself, I want a good solid year behind my bow before I go after any big game. And so I went and I ended up getting two turkeys, which is an even smaller target with a bow. And then the next year is when I started actually going for elk and deer. And so my next kill was a doe.
Hmm.
And then yeah, it just kind of went from there. But yeah, that's kind of my how I got into it was just basically I enjoyed the tinkering aspect of it. I enjoyed that it's one of those things that if you don't do it consistently, then you kind of start to lose it a little bit. And I also like the fact that you don't necessarily have to be the best or most talented. It's got a lot to do with consistency and
Hmm.
repetition, which is something that I personally am good at. I don't have the best, highest quality podcasts out there, but I'm very consistent. If I say there's going to be a podcast out or if there's going to be a post, it's there.
Hmm.
And it's the same with with archery. I try and get at least 5 reps a day in at this point, even in the garage, blank bailing kind of deal, um, just to make sure that I've at least got the technique down. And then, every once in a while when you get the chance to stretch it out, it's fun to stretch it out. And I think the furthest I've shot my bow is 150 yards.
Hmm.
And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Watching that
man.
arrow fly is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you can tell you wait, you can see it if you're shooting at a balloon and you just wait, and then it pop. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's awesome. But
Yeah.
no, that's cool, man. And yeah, and you're right, man. Consistency, it doesn't matter what you're doing in life. If you're consistent and you work hard and like you said, if you're not afraid with failure, if you embrace failure, because that's where you grow, right? When we get knocked down, we get up. Like, I've been knocked down more times than I can remember. I remember thinking way back when I started my first business, everybody laughed at me. I was 18. They're like, what are you going to do? You're 18 years old. You can't start a business. And I'm talking like my dad, my family members,
Oh yeah.
laughing at me thinking it was a joke. Right. And then, I, that obviously didn't work. And I got up, tried something new. Right. And that doesn't work. You get up and try something new. And then eventually over time, that consistency and that just, the hard work and that, embracing failure as part of success, boom, it's like, wow. And then, people look at you now and you're like, well, must be nice. And you're like, oh, yeah, you weren't saying that, 25 years ago. So it's awesome to hear your story and your introduction to archery, man. That's great.
Yeah, it's and I would agree. It sucks. Look, when people come to you and say, that must be nice, or isn't it cool you get to go do these things? And I'm like, yeah, but what have you done over the last couple years that could have gotten you? Like the lost potential kind of makes me sad a little bit when people come and say that to me. I'm like, you're in the same job, you're doing the same thing, like and maybe that's what makes you happy, but obviously not if you're saying
Yeah.
must be nice and you're jealous of this or that. Um, it's unfortunate, when you hear things like that. I've also uh it's also sad to me to see like when there's a kind of I guess an incidence where there's like mortality is kind of brought to the forefront of your mind. We've got a really close uh person here in the family that just collapsed from a he had a aortic valve rupture and normally that's deadly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he collapsed, and luckily they were able to save him, and luckily it didn't perforate the actual aorta. Um, it it just caused a lot of issues, right? And they had to go in and repair. It was over a 12-hour surgery, and this guy is one of those people that he just gives and doesn't really look to recharge his own batteries, and that stress and high blood pressure and everything else caused this tear that could have ended his life very easily. Most people do die from this. Luckily, he just happened to be, live really close to a hospital, and the ambulance was able to get there within minutes. Um, and so, you know, I had my son, my daughter-in-law, and my mom, all three of them recently have come to me and asked after years. I mean, obviously my son has been living in our house since I've been in his life, uh, for over 10 years. And he's finally coming to me asking me for help with fitness and nutrition
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Yeah.
It
It's,
sucks that it takes something like that, an event like that, for people to come to you, but at the same time, when you got to be ready when those people do come to you and start asking for help and advice, and the consistency that I have shown over those last over a decade in his life shows that he's now confident in coming to
yeah,
me
that's
when
awesome.
he's at his his weakest moment. And um I hate that that happened to this guy, but at the same time, like, it's a moment that we can be there and be ready to help where we can, you know.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. I know in my life, like I was always, I started this business that I have now, and I was really successful at it. Made lots of money, but I always perceived like success and happiness. I'd go to work hard, work 6 days a week, running my body down, drinking lots. And I always just said, if I'm successful, everything's going to work itself out, right? Like it didn't really, I didn't really correlate it. Like I didn't put all the pieces together. And then, I found my best friend dead. Um, and he worked for me. We fished together a lot. We did a lot of stuff in the outdoors together. And that was kind of like a switch. It just flipped right for me. And then I realized, and I've always been active, like I do a very physical job, and I always, do, I do physical activity, played hockey, did all this stuff. I was really, in the back country is where, you know, but it was more like, yeah, you get in shape before, 2 weeks before a hunt. It wasn't as present as it is now. Once I got into
Mhm.
really like my late 30s, early 40s, it was like boom. And that's when I got into bow hunting. And I attribute a lot of that to bow hunting and just kind of like mental clarity on like life and all that stuff. But yeah, it's really awesome when you see your kids they follow your lead in that. And like my oldest, he, about a year ago, actually, he got into it. He got into running. He got into, he wanted to lift weights. And I said, well, you don't really need to lift weights, right? You're 10 years old, like, but just do some push-ups, do some sit-ups, right? Do body weight stuff. That's all you need. You don't need to be down here trying to bench press 60 pounds or doing all that stuff. You just don't need it. But like running's great. Yeah, just body weight workouts are great, but and he's been doing it consistently over a year, and like, man, you see that kid run now, right? Like it's amazing how much he's gained and growed with it, and just his mindset and like his consistency. And I think it's great for the kids because it builds
Mhm.
discipline for them. And like you could be motivated all you want, but there's a big difference between being motivated and have discipline.
Yep.
Like you can say you're going to do this, you could listen to music, you could do all this other stuff, but until you actually do it and do it consistently, I'm not talking about doing it for a week, doing it for a month. You got to do it for a year before results are going to show up. You got to do it for 2 years. And then you start getting into these, it's like with bow hunting. When I first started only bow hunting, it was rough. It was really rough.
Mhm.
Punched one tag. And then, last year, I had a pretty good year, right? A couple bulls down, a buffalo, some deer, but that's it's the consistency and the discipline and the hard work you have to do over time that it compounds to get to where you
Mhm.
are. So man, it's awesome that to see that your boys coming to you with that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and being a dad is one of those things that it's one of the most rewarding and frustrating things, and you can have all that
Mhm.
happen in a span of 10 minutes, where it can
Yeah.
be like you can be celebrating this big win, and then all of a sudden something happens and you're the most frustrated you've been in months, all from the same kid. And it's because you want to see your kids succeed and be a better version of you, and be able to do more than you did at that age. And so, that's a big thing for me, sharing what I do, and getting them into archery. Again, things like the, I guess, the hunting and the archery and the outdoorsy stuff. It's not something that I don't force on the kids. I invite them, and then when they start to show interest is when I provide the equipment, or the opportunities, or whatever it is. Um, you know, Something else too that's big for me, right around that time that I was getting into archery, I had a big transformation back in 2020, where I got down to the lowest weight I've been in a while. I felt really good, and I started working with First Form. And the reason why I started to do that, for people that don't know anything about First Form, or First Form Outdoors, is more specifically the branch that I work with. First Form is an amazing company that basically the goal is simply to get real people lasting results, long lasting results. And it's a company that it puts the community first over selling supplements. Supplements are obviously there. It's something to help, but the community comes first, and the education as well for everyone. And so it's not just, hey, come join us, and oh, here's the stack that everyone takes. Here you go. Let us know
Yeah.
if you got any questions. It's, hey, come join the community. We love doing this and that. Here's our activities. Hey, if you're at ATA, come to the open gym. Hey, if there's an event here in the area, we might hold an open gym for it here at headquarters. And then on top of that, the education behind it. And it's like the Facebook group, for example. When you go in there, it's one of the groups that I know that you genuinely, if you're being a jerk, you get booted from. And if you're treating people like they're stupid, for asking questions, things like that, like, you get booted from the group, because we want people to be able to genuinely learn. So anyway, all that to say, First Form Outdoors was formed because we recognized that First Form showed a lot of, I guess, a lot of the bodybuilding style, or not even just bodybuilding, because there's like ultra marathon runners and stuff that are in the First Form community, but a lot of that hardcore, disciplined working out style that a lot of outdoorsmen and women they're not attracted to. They may appreciate that work, but they don't want to join that kind of community. They're not looking to step on stage, or to go run an ultra marathon all the time, or to be shredded. They just want to be healthier so that they can share what they're passionate about with their loved ones for generations. And so what we've done is we've taken, that mission of First Form to get real people, long lasting results. And we've met the outdoors men and women where they are, whether that's on a boat, bass fishing, or it's out hiking, or backpacking, or hunting, or archery, or rifle shooting, or, getting into the tactical games, for example, like pistol shooting for events, things like that. We want people to recognize that you don't have to be shredded, like Dale Beatty. If you guys know who Dale Beatty is, do you know who Dale is, Kevin?
No.
Oh man, I'll have to send him to you. He's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like someone chiseled him out of a freaking rock, and he stays like that. Um, he doesn't fluctuate in and out of that. He's just like that all the time. It's
Crazy.
crazy. But you don't have to be like that to enjoy the outdoors. But every man and woman that I've spoken with wants to share what they love in the outdoors with their kids, their grandkids, and their great grandkids, if they're blessed with that amount of time. And so we want to encourage that. People want to talk about, the Dave Ramsey stuff, where you invest and you become a millionaire by the time you retire, et cetera. And it takes a little bit here and now. And the younger you are, the smaller you have to start investing at that time to equal the same result in the end. It's the same with your fitness. If you're
Mhm.
putting small investments in every single day and incrementally growing that, by the time you retire, you're going to be looking way better and feeling way better than most of the
Mhm.
people your age.
Yeah.
And you're going to look back and say, man, those 30 years, those 40 years may not have been easy, because everyone else, all my other friends, are out chilling, eating these greasy burgers, watching Netflix, binging shows. And I was out here doing a stupid outdoor workout for my 75 hard or whatever it was. I was out, getting ready for elk season. And now though, you look back, you're like, well, my joints don't ache as much. I can get off the couch. I can play with my grandkids. I can help my grandkids get up into a tree stand. I can take my kids out on a hike and they're not out hiking me, that kind of deal. That's what we want. And so anyone who hasn't checked out First Form Outdoors, I recommend that. Don't be scared of us trying to like shove supplements down your throat, because that's not going to happen. It's going to be, we're going to welcome you in with open arms, talk to you about, figure out what you love, what you enjoy, what your goals are. And then if supplements fit in there because you need some help with nutrition, that's what we're here for. And if not, we still want you. We want you in the group. So
yeah, that's cool, man. I see you doing a lot of stuff, and I'll put a link up in the show notes. Yeah, it's funny, and like I know a lot of like older, the older generation of hunters, and like this new generation of hunters coming up, behind us. Fitness is a lot more involved with hunting, and like I tell everybody, I'm like, well, listen, like, because no matter what you do, if you try to mix hunting and fitness, there's going to be the guy that says, well, I don't need to be in shape to go kill a bull. I kill a bull every year. Yeah. Okay, but listen, if you get in shape, you're going to be healthier. You're going to start eating better. Everything's going to, your body's going to react better. You're going to live longer. The longer you live, the more you get to hunt elk. So really, it's going to make you a better hunter in the long run. So, but exactly. Yeah, that's
obviously
cool, man.
Obviously we can't control, like, if someone happens to get like MS or Alzheimer's or something like that, right? We can't control that, but you can control your weight. And weight is the contributing factor to so many issues such as heart disease and just diabetes and so many other things that break down your body, wear and tear on your joints. I mean, just think about that. Have you ever gone and for some people that maybe haven't gone through a weight loss, at any point in their life, go throw a 30-pound pack on your back and go walk for an hour. And you tell me that your feet aren't sore. Or that your knees or that your back isn't feeling it in some degree.
Yeah.
So imagine, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, especially, and like not necessarily for guys overweight, but just like for the working man who does a grind. If you're doing construction, if you're up on a roof, you're going up and down ladders all day, your knees are going to take a pounding. And if you're not keeping up, if you're not doing those exercises to strengthen your quads, strengthen your calves, strengthen your hamstrings, doing stretches to, improve flexibility, your life's going to be, it's going to be it's going to be a shittier life for you in the long run if you're not, if you don't work on those things. And like you said, if you start when you're young, like all these young guys that work for me and they're in their 20s, I'm like, I see the stuff they're doing. Like, you guys should incorporate a little, little exercises 3 times a week now, because when you're my age, you're not going to feel like I am, and you're not going to have to do what I have to do every day just so you can get out of bed. So I'm just, but exactly. And for the people that are, struggling with weight issues and, that nowadays, it seems like more people than less people are struggling with weight issues.
Exactly. So, there's definitely different areas to hit. And I agree with you there. So like with weight, for example, taking that 30-pound pack off, that's how you're going to feel if you lose those 30 extra pounds that you've got, or even if it is 10 pounds. I mean, 10 pounds compounded over all that up and down on a ladder, swinging a hammer, doing all that hard labor stuff. That's a big deal. Maybe you feel like you're in shape because you're working construction, which is a hard labor job, and you are pretty fit. Okay, cool. Like what you were saying, what about some mobility? And what's your nutrition like at that point? If you're working your body hard, are you getting enough omega-3s? Are you getting enough, carbohydrates to refuel your muscles, your glycogen stores? Are you hydrated? Not just drinking water to where you're pissing clear, but are you actually rehydrating your tissues so that you can get the nutrients to your muscles and your organs and everything else in your body? Are all of those things, do you have enough protein to rebuild the muscles that you're tearing down throughout the day if you have a hard labor job? And then, of course, the omega-3s for cognitive function. You want to lubricate those joints that you're bending in and out. You're going up and down stairs, up and down ladders. Like, you got to make sure that those things are dialed in. Even if you are looking in the mirror and you're jacked and you got a 6-pack, it doesn't mean that you are nutritionally sound.
Yeah.
Because you could go try and chase an elk and you don't have any glycogen stores to be able to work off of, or any fat stores to be able to work off of, that then your body burns out and you're just as exhausted as the dude that's overweight trying to go up the mountain.
Yeah, I should connect with you more, and like I feel like I need to really improve on like my nutritional intake. Like not really what I eat. Like I eat quite a bit, you know,
Yeah,
and for protein I usually consume about 200 grams of protein a day, but you
perfect.
know, I train lots. I train 7 days a week, and a lot of those are double, you know, twice a day. And I do a very physical job. And like I'm not always doing the physical aspect of it, being the owner. But I mean, there's still days when I'll go lay blocks for, you know, a week. And I mean, you lay 300-400 block a day and they're 35 pounds each. It starts to add up, right? And so
Hmm.
it's the same thing as, but it's going the other way. It's that you know, compounding block lifting weight over and over. And if you're not getting the
Right.
proper stuff to replace it and to rebuild and repair your body, then you know it's like again, it's going to make your life miserable. And like, let's face it. I mean, we all want to live, and like I hope you do. You want to live the best, longest life you can.
Exactly. Exactly. And for someone like you, maybe protein powder is not a necessity because you're able to get it through Whole Foods. 100%. That's awesome. But how are your micronutrients looking?
Hmm.
That's when you would look at like something I take non-negotiable, whether I eat all my protein or not in a day, is my microfactor, which is the micronutrients. So multivitamin, probiotics, prebiotics. I take my greens powder because I definitely don't eat enough greens, fruits, and vegetables in a day, along with fermented food. I definitely do not eat enough fermented food
Hmm.
to get the probiotics and prebiotics that your digestive system needs. So those the omegas, the microfactor, which is your basically your multivitamin, but on steroids in a way, doesn't have
Hmm.
steroids in it, but you know, and then greens. Those three things, like I always have those with me when I travel, even when I
Yeah.
leave my protein powder behind or whatever. Those three things are non-negotiables for me every single day.
Right now
So,
you're talking like just the powdered greens, mix those with
mhm.
water, drink it back,
Yep.
or fruit juice. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I still do take protein shakes and stuff just to because I really, you know, I really try to stay around 200 grams of
Mhm.
protein a day just because, you know, you work so hard to gain muscle and to be fit. And without protein, I just feel like, man, like if you're not getting the proper protein, then it's just all for nothing.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah. And
you
I,
know, with the vitamins and the omegas and stuff, I feel I definitely need more education on it, and definitely more. I definitely need to make sure I'm doing it consistently, not just buying a bottle, using that bottle up, and then forgetting about it for a month.
right. Exactly. And the other thing too, on like omegas, for example. So people will ask me like, hey, why does first form cost more? Like, well, why does premium gas cost more than regular?
Mm.
Because the process that it takes to make it is different and you're getting a better result. So, yes, it's going to cost a little bit more. And no, we don't run like discounts and sales like a lot of other supplement companies out there that you'll find. There's a constant new flavor, new sell, something along those lines. When we do deals, it's more you buy a certain amount, you get XYZ extra than normal, right? And that's just the sign of we want to show that, it is a high quality product and we don't want to discount a high quality product and set that standard lower than where it's at, right? Also with the omega 3s, we don't go through and fill it with a bunch of omega 6s and 9s. We don't make that ratio awful like a lot of fish oils are.
Oh,
We
so
make
is that
sure.
like just filler for like a cheaper brand type of thing?
So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's filler because you need 6 and 9s, but
Right.
when
Okay.
you outweigh the three in that ratio, and usually a good ratio from my understanding is a 2 to 1 to 1, as far as a 3 to 6 to 9, right?
Gotcha.
Some people it'll be like ones across the board, or they'll be
Hmm.
even,
Hmm.
and there's other ingredients in our omegas that it's harder to get because you have to get it in wild caught salmon and it's not farm raised salmon, right? So obviously that process takes more time, it's higher quality, so it's going to cost a little bit more than the bottle you're going to go buy at Costco. Same with the protein. I've had people that have had gut issues their entire life on protein, get the protein farts and all that stuff. They try our protein and they don't have that issue because with Formula One, which is the isolate protein, or Level One, which is the whey concentrate, uh, they are low temperature processed. So a good analogy would be take a piece of chicken, a chicken breast, throw it on the grill, 500 degrees for 4 hours. What's going to happen?
Could be like a brick.
Yeah, exactly. Are you going to eat that? Probably not.
No,
And if you
no.
did, your stomach would be messed up.
Yeah.
And then you take that same chicken breast or a different chicken breast, you put it in a crock pot, 160 degrees for the same amount of time. It comes out tender, juicy, pull apart, like super good. You don't get messed up stomach from eating it. It's the same with protein. There's a quick and easy process to get rid of that, or to get the whey out of the source that they use to get the whey protein, and it's flash cooked basically. And then
Okay.
what they do is they put a bunch of fillers and stuff in it so you don't taste that burnt protein.
Mm.
And that's what causes your stomach to be like, hey, I don't quite recognize this. I'm going to try and digest it, and we're going to see what we can get out of it. Versus a low temperature processed protein where it's like, it's more bioavailable to be able to get into your system and actually use the protein. And there's not the fillers of, you get a 30-gram scoop of protein and you get 20 grams of protein out of that. What's in the other 10 grams?
Yeah, okay. That's what I
Versus
was going to
ours.
ask you, is if there's a better nutritional value to it as well. Because yeah, I mean, if you're taking protein, you think you're taking, if you're on a strict diet and you think you're taking, whey three, this is just say 3 times a day, and you think you're getting 100 grams of pure protein from this whey, and it actually is only 60 or 70. I mean, over time, that's 30 a day,
Mhm.
60 for two, it starts to add up. And if you're trying to build muscle, then you're not having the proper amino acids and proteins to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's the same thing with our greens as well. It's all low temperature process. So all of that stuff is, we do everything we can to not denature the protein or the greens powder, because we want to make sure that you're able to absorb as much of the nutrients as is available and also not tear up your gut. Because again, some people will mistake having weight issues for just a not good protein, not a solid source of protein. And so the moment they swap, they're like, I'll try it, but I'm not a big fan of whey. And then they try it and they're like, oh, I don't have the bloating and the gassiness that I get from most proteins.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's made.
Yeah. And anybody who's taken whey, a protein supplement like a shake type, they've
Mhm.
experienced that somewhere
Oh
along the
yeah.
way.
Oh yeah.
Everybody has. I mean, I've experimented with a lot. I found a good one. It's not great. Being up in Canada, it's accessibility is the hardest thing.
Hmm.
Sometimes you order stuff and it gets stuck at the border for a month, and you're like, hey,
Like I
come
said,
on.
we should annex the BC. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it wouldn't be bad. I don't know about yeah. I watch not a lot. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I always glimpse at the CNN, and I love the stuff going on with your guys' and your, I mean, our government's a mess too, but like just the stuff going on down there right now. So
oh
it's
yeah,
going to
it's
be
a joke.
interesting
I'm
this
ready
year
to
for you
wake up.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I had someone, I'm by no means a Trump fan. I don't like him personally. But I did hear a comedian, Shane Gillis, the other day. He was like, we should have every year we should have just the surprise guest be Trump at the end, like one Democrat, one Republican doing their debate, and then they bring Trump in, and just to see how they handle it. He's like, and his joke was, he was like, he's like, the only candidate that's been able to handle that was Biden, and it's because Trump tries to get in your head, and look, Joe's not even in his own head. So good
Yeah.
luck getting in there. Like, it was just, it's hilarious. But I would pay to see that. I don't watch TV, but I would pay to see that debate if they just brought Trump in like Cold Stone Steve
Yeah.
Austin, just
Yeah. Just the smoke go off and he come running
yeah,
through.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Oh
people
man.
cheering. Yeah, that'd be funny. No, it's
Yeah.
gonna be interesting. But anyway, man, thanks for coming on the show, man. You and I were chatting back and forth for quite a while, trying to work out some time to get you on, and I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you having me on.
Why don't you just, for my listeners and all the folks up here in Canada, just tell everybody where they can find and follow you and all that stuff.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate it. Well, first, thanks for listening in, guys. And you can find me on Instagram. I'm pretty active over there. It's just red.beard.outdoors. Hoping to change that soon. I got to figure out who owns Redbeard Outdoors, so there's no periods in
Oh,
between
there's
there. But
somebody else already owns. Huh, crazy.
there's a couple of them, and none of them are active, and they haven't been active for years. So I've
Oh,
tried to petition Instagram to swap the names for me, but haven't gotten any feedback on that. I guess
yeah.
I'm not cool enough yet. But anyway, it's at red.beard.outdoors. On YouTube, it's Redbeard Outdoors, Spotify, Apple as well, Redbeard Outdoors Podcast. And then, if you're looking for a good community, whether you're in Canada, Mexico, the US, wherever, I highly recommend joining the First Form Outdoors Facebook community. And of course, look up the page as well. It's First Form Outdoors on Instagram. We've got a weekly podcast that we do over there live on the Facebook group called Boots Around the Fire. And then just you're gonna find at least one person, if not multiple people, that will answer your questions, whatever you have. If you're new to the outdoors, if you're not new and you just want to get into a good group of people, that's a good place to go.
Cool, buddy. Yeah, I'll put all that stuff up in the show notes too. So
Cool.
easy access for everybody. Okay, man. Thanks a lot, eh?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, later.